The notification arrived at 3:17 p.m. Another tag from a stranger in yet another meme about my brother. When I opened it, my entire world shifted on its axis. There he was, my brilliant, tender-hearted brother, frozen mid-panic attack, his face twisted in pain as cartoon sound effects played over his gasping. The caption read, "When anxiety boy tries to do a TED talk but forgets his meds, lolo lolo number anxiety boy number epic fail number heart attack waiting to happen." My fingers hovered over my keyboard, ready to defend him as I'd done 1,000 times before. But my brother's voice echoed in my head, "Don't engage, Eliza. It only feeds them." I closed the laptop and called him instead. No answer. Called again. Nothing. By the 6th call, something primal in me knew. I abandoned my car in a no-parking zone and sprinted 3 blocks to his apartment. The door was unlocked, the shower running. He was crumpled on the bathroom floor, one arm stretched toward his heart medication on the sink counter, fingers still grasping. His phone lay beside him, screen illuminated with notification after notification, tags, comments, messages, all mocking him. The paramedics said his heart had given out approximately 40 minutes earlier. 40 minutes I'd spent staring at a screen, watching strangers tear him apart, before I'd bothered to check if he was okay. The coroner would later confirm what I already knew. Extreme emotional distress had triggered a fatal cardiac event. His compromised heart couldn't withstand the constant barrage of humiliation anymore. At the funeral, I watched people dab at dry eyes, their performative grief as hollow as their earlier concern. My brother's college roommate delivered a beautiful eulogy about his generosity. My parents clutched each other, broken beyond repair, and in the back row, 3 people whispered behind their hands, stifling laughter. One filmed discreetly. The tallest, a man with sharp features and predatory eyes, caught me watching and quickly averted his gaze. The next day, those same 3 posted funeral selfies with captions like "Paid respects to number anxiety boy today, rip, and guess his heart really was weak number too soon." That night, as our house filled with casseroles and condolences, I slipped away to my brother's apartment. I sat at his desk where he'd spent his final hours, turned on his computer, and stared at the screen until a plan crystallized in my mind. He'd saved everything. Every notification, every comment, every message, every single person who'd participated in his torment. My meticulous brother, even in his darkest moments, had created folders with usernames, real names, locations, platforms. He'd tracked it all, perhaps hoping that someday someone would care. Someone did care. Too late. I copied everything, added my own system, created backups of backups. By morning, I had 40,000 items, a perfect record of cruelty, a roadmap to every person who had contributed to killing my brother, and I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. If you're hearing this story and it's making your stomach twist into knots, maybe hit like and subscribe. Not for me, but for all the brothers and sisters and friends we've lost to the casual cruelty of strangers who thought their words couldn't kill, because they can, and they do. And sometimes, those words come back to haunt the people who wrote them. My name is Eliza Frost. I'm 32 years old, with a degree in library science and a job cataloging rare manuscripts that no one reads anymore. I was the cautious sister, the quiet one. My brother Theo was the dreamer between us, brilliant but fragile, with a heart condition that made every emotional spike potentially lethal. He knew this. His tormentors knew this too. They used it as ammunition. "Hey, heart boy, don't pop a vessel. Cardiac club meeting tonight. Try not to die. Maybe if your heart wasn't such a little bitch, you'd have some friends." These weren't children. These were adults, professionals, parents, people with careers and reputations, people who should have known better, people who thought anonymity meant immunity. The ringleader called himself the Observer. His real name was Patrick. He'd built a following of millions by identifying vulnerable targets and orchestrating their destruction. University professors awarded him cultural analysis grants. Marketing companies sought his insights. He was writing a book about internet psychology. And he had selected my brother as his most successful case study yet. "The beauty of number anxiety boy," he wrote in a post that garnered 87,000 likes, "is watching someone completely unravel in real time. It's performance art. We're creating a cultural moment here, people." 3 days after Theo's funeral, Patrick posted a video titled, "When Internet Comedy Has Real-World Consequences and Why That's Not on Us." He spoke directly to camera, expression somber. "Look, no one could have predicted that someone with a known health condition would experience health problems. That's just life, folks. Dark humor is how humans process tragedy. Always has been. The video received 4.3 million views. His followers defended him passionately in the comments. Natural selection at work. If you can't handle heat, stay off the internet. Not Patrick's fault. Some weakling couldn't take a joke. I watched it all unfold from my darkened apartment. I hadn't returned to work, hadn't showered in days. My parents worried I was falling apart. Friends suggested therapy. Everyone thought I was drowning in grief. I was, but grief is not the absence of action. Grief is kinetic energy. Grief is a force that can level mountains. Most importantly, grief is patient. I used Theo's methodical records to create profiles on every single person who had participated in what I now understood was not just bullying, but manslaughter. The ringleaders, the amplifiers, the silent enablers who just clicked like and moved on. I categorized them by influence level, persistence, and cruelty. I triangulated their real identities with their online personas. Patrick was easy. He barely disguised himself, confident in his untouchability. His videos brought him sponsorships, speaking engagements, and a vicious audience that he wielded like a weapon. He lived in a high-rise downtown, drove an expensive car, and dated models and influencers. He had appeared on talk shows discussing internet culture and the psychology of virality. Sometimes public humiliation serves a purpose, he told a nodding host. It enforces social norms. I learned his patterns, his favorite coffee shop, his gym schedule, the bar where he met friends every Thursday. I learned which companies paid him, which publications quoted him as an expert, which universities invited him to speak. I learned all this not by following him. I never got within 100 yards of Patrick, but through the information breadcrumbs. People leave everywhere when they think no one is watching. Then I met with a lawyer named Vivian. She didn't look like the avenging angel I had imagined. She wore practical shoes and no makeup. Her office was small, her coffee terrible. But her eyes held something I recognized, the banked fire of someone who had seen true injustice and decided to do something about it. I specialize in cases that others won't touch, she explained, reviewing Theo's files. Specifically, I help people who have been targeted by coordinated harassment campaigns. Can we sue them all? I asked. She smiled thinly. That's rarely effective. The legal system moves too slowly, and these types think paying damages is just the cost of doing business. What they truly fear is irrelevance. Unemployability. Their actions attached to their names permanently. That's what I want, I whispered. For them to feel what Theo felt. Exposed. Helpless. Watched. Then we'll need to be creative, she said. And patient. I nodded. I have nothing but time. While I worked with Vivian, Patrick's star continued to rise. He launched a podcast analyzing internet cancel culture, where he positioned himself as a free speech warrior. He signed a book deal. He was profiled in magazines as a provocative digital anthropologist pushing boundaries. 6 months after Theo's death, he posted a retrospective video addressing what he called the anxiety boy situation. Look, it's unfortunate what happened. Nobody wanted that outcome. But let's be real. If your medical condition makes you that fragile, maybe don't put yourself in stressful situations. Don't attempt public speaking. Personal responsibility still exists. His followers rallied around him. Brands continued to pay him. His life got better while my parents withered, while I carried my brother's ashes in a pendant around my neck. But beneath the surface, changes were happening. Small, imperceptible shifts that Patrick and his followers couldn't yet see. Vivian had helped me create a system, completely legal but utterly devastating, that was quietly taking shape. My grief transformed into something else, something focused. People mistook my calm for healing. They said I seemed better. What they couldn't see was that I had simply transferred my pain into purpose. Our plan activated on the 1-year anniversary of Theo's death. The date was significant not for symbolic reasons, but because it gave us exactly the time needed for everything to be perfectly positioned. Patrick celebrated that day by announcing his book tour. Big news, followers! My book, Watching the Watchers, How Internet Mobs Shape Modern Culture, goes on sale next month. Tour dates below. Come see your favorite observer observe. That night, as he toasted his success at an upscale bar with his team, the first domino fell. A woman approached Patrick at the bar, not unusual, as fans often did. She was plain-looking, unremarkable, the kind of person his eyes would normally slide right past. "Excuse me," she said. "You're the observer, right, Patrick?" He smiled that practiced smile. the one and only. Want a selfie? Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Theo Frost. The name hung between them. His smile flickered but didn't disappear. Sorry, not familiar with Anxiety Boy, she clarified. The one who died. His friends shifted uncomfortably. Patrick waved them off with a practiced chuckle. Ancient history, sweetheart. If you're here to guilt-trip me, save it for someone who— I'm not, she interrupted. I'm here to let you know I just lost my job at Make Life Well because of a comment I left on one of your videos about him. They said it violated their ethics policy. Patrick's expression hardened. That's ridiculous. Nobody gets fired for comments. I did. So did Chris from your Discord. And Mina, who made that remix. There's a whole thread about it starting. She walked away before he could respond. Patrick immediately pulled out his phone, checking the private channel where his most devoted followers gathered. Indeed, a thread was forming, 3 people claiming they'd been fired after their employers received anonymous tips about their participation in the Anxiety Boy campaign. Probably just trolls, Patrick told his friends, but his hand trembled slightly as he set down his drink. He was right to worry. By morning, 17 people had reported similar experiences. Comments they'd left months ago, some just a laughing emoji, others more vicious, had suddenly surfaced in their professional lives. Job offers rescinded. Internships canceled. One woman claimed her graduate program was reassessing her admission after receiving an anonymous package. Patrick posted a defiant message. Some sad little crusader thinks they can silence us. Stay strong, followers. This will blow over like everything does. But it didn't. 2 weeks later, Patrick arrived at his first book signing to find the event canceled. The bookstore manager apologetically explained that they'd received concerning information about his online behavior. 3 more venues followed suit that same week. Patrick's publisher called an emergency meeting. This is absurd, Patrick insisted, pacing their conference room. Some social justice warrior is trying to deplatform me because they can't handle edgy humor. It's textbook cancel culture. His editor slid a folder across the table. This isn't about edge, Patrick. This is about liability. Inside was a meticulously organized collection of his involvement in the Anxiety Boy campaign, work comments, videos, private messages somehow made public, alongside medical information about Theo's heart condition and documentation that Patrick had been explicitly told his target had a life-threatening health issue. Where did this come from? Patrick demanded, voice rising. It was sent to every major bookseller, every venue on your tour, and our entire board, his editor said quietly. Patrick, they have receipts of you celebrating when you heard he died. Actual champagne receipts with the timestamp matching your private messages saying, "One less weakling in the world." The publisher pulled the book. The speaking engagements evaporated. Patrick's agent stopped returning calls. Still, Patrick had his platform, millions of followers who considered him a truth teller, a digital pioneer unafraid to push boundaries. He pivoted hard, casting himself as the victim of a witch hunt. His engagement numbers actually rose as controversy swirled. They're trying to silence me because I refuse to bow to the sensitivity police, he declared in a live stream that drew record viewership. But I will never apologize for comedy. He launched direct monetization through his own website, bypassing traditional platforms. Money flowed in from supporters, crisis seemingly averted. Then his most devoted followers began experiencing strange coincidences. A man who'd created dozens of Anxiety Boy memes found his dating profile screenshots circulating among every woman he matched with. A woman who doxed Theo's workplace suddenly discovered her own address and daily routine published on anonymous forums. People who'd sent Theo death threats began receiving hang-up calls at 3:17 p.m., the exact time his body was discovered. No threats, no direct contact, just the creeping sensation that someone was watching, waiting, connecting dots. The panic spread among Patrick's community. Some publicly disavowed him, trying to distance themselves. Others doubled down, becoming even more aggressive in their defense. Patrick himself swung between bravado and increasing paranoia. He installed security systems, hired guards, started carrying a taser. He was convinced someone was targeting him specifically. He wasn't wrong. 9 months after Theo's death, I watched Patrick through my laptop screen as he recorded a video titled, "Who is Behind the Harassment Campaign Against Me?" His eyes darted constantly. His famous cool demeanor had evaporated. He looked exhausted, unshaven, jumpier than my brother had ever been. "Someone out there thinks they can destroy me," he snarled into the camera. "They've cost me deals, speaking gigs, my book. They're coming after anyone associated with me. Well, guess what? I'm still here. My platform is bigger than ever. You can't cancel the observer. His followers cheered in the comments, though their numbers had noticeably thinned. What Patrick didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I never wanted to cancel him. Cancellation was too quick, too clean. You get canceled, you wait out the storm, you stage a comeback with tearful apologies. No, what I wanted was much more intricate. I wanted him to feel what Theo felt. The daily dread, the constant vigilance, the knowledge that at any moment, everything could collapse. I wanted him to experience the slow-motion destruction of everything he valued while helplessly watching it happen. Most importantly, I wanted him to know why it was happening, but never how, creating the same desperate helplessness my brother experienced when he couldn't make the attacks stop. Throughout this time, I continued my quiet life. I returned to work cataloging manuscripts. I visited my parents every Sunday. I adopted a cat. To anyone watching, I was simply a grieving sister, slowly healing. I never posted about Patrick online. Never contacted him or his followers. Never did anything that could create a connection between us. Vivian and I met monthly, always in different locations, always careful. We reviewed progress, adjusted strategies, maintained absolute discipline in our approach. He's getting desperate, she noted during one meeting, showing me Patrick's increasingly erratic posts. He's alienating the few sponsors he has left, making accusations against former friends. Good, I said simply. The others are falling in line exactly as expected, she continued. The higher-profile participants are experiencing the most significant consequences. The casual participants, just enough, that word is spreading. The pattern is established. I nodded, sipping my tea. And the timing? Perfect. Everything converges next month, the anniversary. And so it did. The second anniversary of Theo's death approached. Patrick, now struggling financially after most monetization options had mysteriously closed to him, announced a special live stream memorial. Yes, I'm going to address the anxiety boy situation once and for all, he told his remaining followers. I'll explain my side of what happened, clear the air, and put this behind us. This has gone on long enough. The night before his planned stream, Patrick sat in his apartment, downgraded from his luxury high-rise to a modest one-bedroom, reviewing his notes. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. 3rd floor. Apartment 3C. Come alone or I release everything. Patrick stared at the message. This was it, finally coming face to face with his tormentor. Against his better judgment, driven by months of paranoia and desperation, he went. Apartment 3C was 3 doors down from his own. He'd never met the neighbor. He knocked, heart racing, adrenaline surging, ready for confrontation. The door opened. Standing there was an ordinary woman with tired eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. You don't recognize me, I said finally. I'm not surprised. Patrick's eyes narrowed. Should I? I'm Eliza Frost, Theo's sister. Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by defensive anger. You're behind all this? You've been destroying my life because of some jokes? Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Do you have any idea what you cost me? My voice remained steady. May I come in? Or would you prefer to have this conversation in the hallway? Once inside, Patrick immediately launched into justifications. How he never intended real harm, how internet culture isn't real life, how he couldn't possibly have known Theo would actually die. I let him talk himself out. Then I placed a small velvet pouch on his coffee table. What's that supposed to be? He asked, voice dripping with defensive sarcasm. Some kind of symbolic threat? It's my brother's ashes, I said quietly, the portion I keep with me. I thought you should see what your content strategy looks like in its final form. Patrick recoiled. That's sick. You're sick. No, Patrick, I'm grieving. There's a difference. I stood to leave. Patrick jumped up, blocking my path. Wait, that's it? You show up with ashes, give me some guilt trip, and leave? After what you've done to me? His voice rose, desperation breaking through. What do you want? Money? A public apology? Tell me how to make this stop. I looked at him for a long moment. Tomorrow's the anniversary of Theo's death. Do your live stream. Tell the truth for once. And if I do, all this ends? I didn't answer, just walked around him to the door. You know I could call the police, he called after me. Report you for harassment, stalking. I turned back. With what evidence, Patrick? I've never contacted you before tonight. Never threatened you. Never hacked you or doxed you or sent you a single message. If you have proof otherwise, by all means, call them. The realization that I'd crafted a revenge so perfect it left no fingerprints washed over his face. How? He whispered. How did you do all this without leaving any trail? I smiled sadly. You, of all people, should understand how systems work, Patrick. How patterns form, how information spreads. But the jobs, the sponsors, the venues, all those people suddenly figuring out, perhaps the world is simply becoming a more accountable place, I suggested. Tomorrow, Patrick, tell the truth. As I walked away, I heard him call after me. It won't bring him back, you know. None of this will bring him back. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the empty velvet pouch in my pocket. I know. That night, Patrick drank heavily, torn between rage and terror. By morning, he'd convinced himself he could turn this to his advantage. He would reveal me as his persecutor, position himself as the victim. He still had followers. He could rebuild. The live stream didn't go as Patrick planned. He'd spent the morning trying to craft the perfect narrative, one that would cast him as the victim while maintaining his brand as an unapologetic truth-teller. He set up his equipment with shaking hands, the combination of hangover and anxiety making even simple tasks difficult. His viewership notifications chimed steadily as followers gathered, eager for his promised final word on the anxiety boy situation. "Hey everyone, the observer here," he began, forcing his signature confident smile. "Today marks 2 years since the unfortunate passing of the individual some of you know as Anxiety Boy. His real name was Eliza Frost." The chat immediately filled with mixed reactions, some expressing surprise at his suddenly respectful tone, others posting laughing emojis and "rip weakling" messages. "I've been experiencing some targeted harassment recently," Patrick continued. "And last night I discovered who's behind it. Theo's sister has been conducting a systematic campaign against me and anyone associated with my content." He waited for the outrage from his supporters. Instead, the chat slowed. Several longtime followers left the stream. "What you don't understand," he pressed on, increasingly desperate, "is that she's manipulated information. She's taken things out of context. A notification popped up on his screen, then another, and another. Someone was mass tagging him across platforms. His phone began buzzing with alerts. "Hold on," he muttered, checking the notifications, his face drained of color. Every major news outlet, advocacy organization, and internet watchdog had received the same press package simultaneously. A comprehensive dossier titled "The Architecture of Digital Manslaughter, a Case Study." It wasn't just about him. The document methodically outlined how targeted harassment campaigns function, using Theo's case as the central example. It included testimony from psychologists, cardiologists, and digital ethics experts. Most devastatingly, it contained a detailed timeline connecting escalations in the harassment directly to measurable deteriorations in Theo's cardiovascular health. "This can't be happening," Patrick whispered, forgetting he was still live. His viewers watched in real time as he scrolled through the document, his face cycling through shock, anger, and finally, fear. Because there at the end was a list, names, usernames, specific actions, and participation levels of every single person who had significantly contributed to the campaign against Theo. All 376 of them. Patrick's name was at the top, with a detailed accounting of his role as architect and amplifier. "She's doxing people," he shouted to his audience. "She's putting targets on our backs." But even as he said it, he realized his mistake. There were no home addresses, no private information, just a public record of public actions. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be reported or removed. Just the truth, meticulously documented. His chat exploded, not with support, but with panic and accusations. "You said we wouldn't face consequences. I'm on that list. What do I do? They just called my workplace. My parents received this." Patrick tried desperately to regain control of his audience. "Everyone stay calm. She's just trying to scare us. Nothing illegal happened here. Humor isn't a crime." But his viewers were abandoning the stream in droves, rushing to assess their own exposure. Patrick himself received an email notification from his landlord asking for an urgent meeting regarding community standards violations. "This is insane," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. "She can't do this. She can't just—" His live stream abruptly cut out as his internet service disconnected. When Patrick tried to reconnect, he discovered his account had been suspended for multiple community guidelines violations. When he checked his email for explanation, he found hundreds of reports had been filed against his content simultaneously, not by Eliza, but by thousands of ordinary users who had received the case study and were horrified by what they learned. The document was spreading exponentially, being shared by influencers, journalists, and lawmakers across the political spectrum. It wasn't positioned as a cancellation campaign, but as an educational resource, a case study in how digital harassment translates to real-world harm, complete with medical documentation. Patrick's phone rang. It was his mother. "Patrick," she said, her voice strained with emotion. "What have you done?" "Mom, I can explain. They sent it to everyone at my church. Your father's colleagues have it, our neighbors, everyone." Her voice cracked. "There's medical information in here, Patrick. Brain scans showing what happened to this boy's heart rate when he saw your videos. His last text messages begging someone to make it stop." "It wasn't just me," Patrick protested. "There were hundreds of people." "You started it," his mother whispered. "The report shows you identified him as a target, organized the first wave, encouraged others when he begged for mercy." The call ended. Patrick sat in stunned silence, the magnitude of what was happening finally sinking in. His buzzing phone displayed a news alert. "Digital harassment study sparks national conversation. The Frost protocol trending worldwide." Patrick grabbed his keys and raced to apartment 3C, pounding on the door. No answer. He tried calling the number that had texted him the night before. Disconnected. He returned to his apartment to find an eviction notice taped to his door, his landlord citing a morality clause in his lease agreement. His email contained terminations from his remaining income sources, his streaming platforms, his website host. As the day wore on, Patrick watched helplessly as the Frost protocol dominated every news cycle. It wasn't presented as revenge, but as a landmark study in digital ethics that happened to use his actions as its central case study. Major tech platforms announced policy reviews. Universities incorporated it into digital citizenship curricula. Lawmakers from both parties cited it while introducing anti-harassment legislation. Most critically, employers began using it as a reference point for hiring decisions, with many publicly stating they would not hire individuals named in the report. Not as punishment, they emphasized, but as a liability assessment. By evening, Patrick sat alone in his darkened apartment, his phone still buzzing with notifications, his future evaporating before his eyes. He'd lost everything: his platform, his income, his reputation, his future prospects. Just as Theo had. At exactly 3:17 p.m. the next day, the time Theo's body had been discovered, Patrick received a handwritten letter. "Patrick, you once told your followers that public humiliation serves a purpose, that it enforces social norms. I agree. What you're experiencing isn't cancellation, it's accountability. The difference is this: cancellation ends, accountability endures. Every action I've taken has been completely legal. I never hacked you, never threatened you, never even contacted you until last night. I simply created a framework for your own words and actions to find you again, exactly when you thought you were safest." Theo spent the last months of his life watching his world collapse while feeling utterly helpless to stop it. Now you understand that feeling. The difference is that Theo did nothing to deserve his fate. You architected yours with meticulous care. You helped kill my brother. I'm not killing you. I'm ensuring that the truth about what you did remains permanently attached to your name, just as Anxiety Boy remained permanently attached to his. The Frost Protocol isn't just a document. It's a system. One that's already been implemented across platforms, organizations, and institutions worldwide. One that ensures that no matter where you go or what you do, the full truth of your actions will be immediately accessible to anyone who might employ you, date you, befriend you, or trust you. You can rebuild. You can apologize. You can change your name. None of it matters. The system is already in motion, maintained not by me but by thousands of people who now understand exactly how digital harassment kills. You made my brother's private suffering a public spectacle. I've made your public cruelty a private prison. The difference is that he never deserved his. You designed yours yourself. That's not revenge. That's symmetry. Eliza Frost. Patrick crumpled the letter, wild-eyed and frantic. He rushed to his computer, searching for information about the Frost Protocol, trying to understand exactly what she had done. What he discovered devastated him. On the anniversary of Theo's death, Eliza had simultaneously released the case study to key organizations along with a practical framework for identifying and responding to digital harassment. She'd partnered with Vivian's law firm, tech ethicists, medical experts, and survivors of similar campaigns to create an actionable system that organizations could immediately implement. The protocol wasn't about punishment, it was about prevention and accountability. It included objective criteria for evaluating harmful online behavior and its real-world impacts. It provided templates for employers, educational institutions, and community organizations to incorporate into their existing policies. Most importantly, it established an open-source database where individuals' public digital actions remained accessible regardless of deletion or platform changes, ensuring that no one could simply erase their digital footprint when convenient. The protocol had gone viral not because it was sensational, but because it addressed a problem everyone recognized but no one had solved: how to create meaningful accountability in digital spaces. Theo's death had become the catalyst for structural change, and Patrick, as the case study's central figure, was now permanently linked to it, not through hacking or illegal means, but through the systemic preservation of his own public actions. He couldn't fight it because she hadn't broken any laws. He couldn't escape it because it wasn't controlled by any single entity. He couldn't outlast it because it had already been adopted into institutional frameworks worldwide. A week later, Eliza stood at Theo's grave, placing fresh flowers beside the headstone. "It's done," she whispered. "Not just Patrick. All of them. They're experiencing exactly what you felt, watching their lives unravel while feeling powerless to stop it." She touched the headstone gently, but there's a difference. You were trapped in a system that allowed their cruelty. They're now trapped in a system that requires their accountability. You couldn't escape. Neither can they. She smiled slightly, tears tracking down her cheeks. "Your death wasn't meaningless, Theo. It changed everything. The Frost Protocol will protect thousands of others from experiencing what you did. Your name now stands for justice, not humiliation." As she walked away, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Major tech platforms unanimously adopt Frost Protocol standards. Digital harassment cases dropped 47% in first month. Patrick eventually tried to restart his life. He applied for jobs in different fields, changed his appearance, even legally changed his name. But at every turn, the Frost Protocol found him, not through surveillance or tracking, but through the meticulous system Eliza had created that made his digital history permanently accessible. Every time he thought he'd escaped, every time he began to feel safe, the pattern would repeat: application, background check, discovery, rejection. Just as Theo had experienced. The sense of being constantly watched, constantly judged, constantly vulnerable, the helplessness, the inescapability. Eliza never contacted Patrick again, never checked on him, never sought updates on any of Theo's tormentors. She didn't need to. She had created a self-sustaining system of accountability that required nothing further from her. She returned to her quiet life cataloging manuscripts, visited her parents on Sundays, adopted another cat. To anyone watching, she was simply a grieving sister who had channeled her pain into advocacy. Only Vivian knew the full architectural brilliance of what she had designed, a revenge mechanism so perfect it appeared not as revenge at all, but as progress. A system that permanently attached consequences to actions without ever breaking a single law. A framework that ensured her brother's tormentors would experience the same inescapable exposure they had inflicted on him. Eliza had weaponized grief not through violence or threats, but through systematic truth-telling on a scale no individual could combat. She had transformed her brother's death from a tragedy into a turning point, and she had done it all without ever throwing a single punch, making a single threat, or breaking a single law. In the years that followed, the Frost Protocol became standard practice across platforms and institutions. Digital harassment cases declined dramatically. Lives were saved, and somewhere in the world, Patrick and 375 other people who had tormented Theo Frost began each day knowing they could never outrun what they had done, not because Eliza was pursuing them, but because the truth of their actions was permanently woven into the fabric of society itself. That's the thing about revenge after death. It doesn't have to be violent to be complete. Sometimes, the most devastating revenge is simply ensuring that the truth survives and that those responsible can never escape it. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. Not for me, but for all the Theos out there who didn't survive the digital mob. For all the Elizas still carrying the ashes of someone they loved. The world is changing because of stories like these. Stories that remind us that our words online have real consequences, and that sometimes those consequences find their way back to us in ways we never anticipated. Remember, the internet never forgets. Neither do sisters.